Tonight, concerned and confused citizens in Salix, Iowa question members of their city council.
That's right. The city recently annexed 900 acres of land in northeast of town, and now some worry what the city plans to do with that land. KTV's Sophie Wyckoff attended that city council meeting tonight. She joined us in studio.
So, Sophie, what are these folks worried about?
Matt and Jessica, some worry that these land could be home to a data center. They also question the city's annexation of the land. I spoke with Kevin Nelson, the mayor of Salix, and he told me in April, 6 families volunteered their land for annexation by the city. That land includes 2 homes. At tonight's meeting, the mayor said the annexation of the land went through, and 7 people who lived in rural Woodbury County are now Salix citizens. Right now, the land is zoned agricultural. Mayor Nelson said there's no current request to rezone the land. I asked Mayor Nelson, as of right now, is there a plan in place for a data center? No plan in place for a data center, and he said that is correct. But he acknowledges people's concerns with data centers.
It's a hot button issue at every level of government, federal, state, and local. And now it's hitting us in the local area. I would say that a lot of the folks here wanted answers from the city council and thought that they were going to get them tonight, but the city council doesn't have those answers because there's been no zoning change request and no information from the landowners on what their plans are.
For 45 minutes, community members voiced their concerns, confusion, and even anger. Some say the city council wasn't being honest in answering all of their questions.
It's hard to ignore the reality of the situation. I have lived in Iowa my entire life and surrounded by farmers my entire life. And 99.9% of them are not going to annex their land to the city unless there's a substantial paycheck.
Mayor Nelson told me that right now there are no applications to rezone the land, and the people who own the land before the annexation still own it. It is up to them what happens to the land in the future. Mayor Nelson expressed his gratitude towards all of the citizens who spoke out to tonight's meeting.
KTIV Sophie Wyckoff for us in the studio tonight. Sophie, we appreciate the update.